Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Potter, and it's a great honor to have you at our conference here today. I am pre-recording this interview with my dear friend and contactee, Luis Fernando Maertens. Welcome, Luis.
¿Cómo estás, Rob? Un gusto poder estar conectados por este medio.
I'm going to read his introduction that I wrote. He has a wonderful new book. Louis written 5 or 6 books, and this one is called The Dragon Seal. So I'm going to introduce you to the wonders of Louis Maertens. So I hope you'll enjoy this little introduction. And then I'm going to ask him some questions, and then he's going to give us a PowerPoint. And I feel a great happiness in finally being able to share with the English-speaking world this most humble and kind soul. It's a pleasure to introduce Louis to you so that you could know of this gentleman and his wonderful work. Some years ago, I found him on a YouTube channel and saw a video he made of a spaceship appearing underwater to one of his group excursions on the island of the Sun in Lake Titicaca, Bolivia. I knew I had to reach out to him at the time, but I never imagined I'd be able to organize English-speaking groups from around the world to meet Louis and go to his amazing journeys, enjoy his company in person. I'm still co-creating journeys with Louis and always encourage others to seek out his information whenever possible. Knowing Louis and learning from him is one of the great joys of my life. What struck me upon meeting Louis is his gentle demeanor and the fact that his soft-spoken words are always delivered with a calm and loving presence. His character exudes the confidence and assuredness that I was seeking in a teacher. I never had a doubt that his experiences were real, nor for a second questioned that any of his experiences were fabricated. He has no ego, and if you meet him, you will know that he has no inkling of an agenda of any kind with regard to sharing his mission and life story, other than the uplifting of mankind on this planet. Because I only speak a limited amount of English, and he is still in the process of studying and striving for fluency in English, we've had to work a little harder to understand the nuances of our communications. As an extraterrestrial contactee before he was 13 years old, Louis stands among the few who are having ongoing contacts and repeated physical contacts. He is gifted with a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge being shared with him by the representative of these spiritually advanced civilizations. To be honest, most people are not open, not minded enough to grasp the fact of the reality and the far-reaching information and implications that come with such a high-level contactee as Louis. In the beginning of my time with him, I grilled him with my incessant questions like a criminal suspect under the hot lights of an interrogation. This was not because I doubted him, rather it was to learn from him the details of his many extraordinary experiences. His patience and kindness with me was and is infinite. He shares his information without sensationalism or hype and does not comment at all on the world's political process and the oligarch's silence and control network, but denies the truth with the public of their knowledge of extraterrestrial visitations and their benevolent motives. I have realized that the guides and masters, as Louis calls the masters inside the Great White Brotherhood, and the guides of the sky, as he calls the Venusians and the extraterrestrials, bless me by being able to learn how to embody the spirit of truth and brotherly love by spending time with my dear friend. I myself am a contactee of the Venusians and Pleiadians, but despite my own physical contact, my hunger for truth was still is incessant. However, before I met another contactee, Raymond Keller, who is almost identical in character to Louis, these gentlemen basically quenched my thirst for knowledge and understanding. So I want to just speak a little bit about Louis' journeys here. Louis realized that Louis has prepared many lifetimes to be able to be in contact as a teacher and hold a space for groups of people to be able to interact with the members of the cosmic family, or the guides as he calls them. The space people show up in their spaceships to confirm for those who want a physical experience that they are real, and they are working intimately with Louis. When the excitement of seeing a spaceship wears off, one is left with many questions. In the case of Louis' groups, seeing many spaceships in one night is not an uncommon phenomenon in what are called programmed contacts. These are literally appointments for contacts. And I know from my experience with Luis that the spaceships and the masters are real, and that because they show up repeatedly to all of my groups, excursions in Bolivia and Peru. Now, many other people are realizing there's a purpose to them showing themselves in the craft to us. You cannot just join one of his journeys like a tourist buying a ticket to an amusement park, at least thinking, well, that was great. You'll definitely be inspired to seek more and learn more, as your curiosity will cause you to ponder the experiences and seek for more information. And most of Louis' participants are guided and usually well on their way to understanding the deeper truths that Louis can answer and that are activated. The beings inside the earth also have a divine plan to welcome humanity, and Louis has been to these inner retreats. And he is speaking about the next phase in a new age or dispensation on planet Earth. So meet Luis Maertens, who is certainly an ambassador who shares the love and wisdom he has garnered from his interdimensional journeys to Venus, Jupiter's moon Ganymede, to the golden disk of the sun beneath the Bermuda Triangle. And he's met beings from the Pleiades, from Venus, and from Alpha Centauri and Orion, actually. So Louis' experiences are tremendous. So I'm going to read for you now some questions I prepared for Louis. And these questions are about the current times. And when you hear Louis, know that he receives telepathic communication. Louis does not channel. These are based on a lifetime of physical contact, communication, and his journeys to outer space and to the inner retreats of the Great White Brotherhood in the Temple of the Purity, the Temple of Seven Rays, in Peru, where he has met the inner earth regents. So here I'm going to ask Louis some 3 pertinent questions. They're very important for our guest here today in Mount Shasta. So enjoy these questions, folks, and Louis is going to answer these, and then he's going to begin his PowerPoint questions. Louis, question number 1.
Okay.
From your lifetime of contact with the masters and the guides of the sky, can you talk about the overall divine plan and how light workers can aid in their personal and planetary healing work toward ascension and in concert with this divine plan?
Bueno, Rob.
Rob, to talk about a cosmic plan at this time on Earth takes us back not only to a year or two, but thousands of years ago. What is happening is a consequence of a large process that these federations formed of many great worlds have come to help us. They are a part of the cosmic plan. This cosmic plan has been designed by 24 solar regent consciousness, cosmic architects at the head of this organization of confederate worlds in our galaxy. They have been the ones drafting assistant plans to worlds in evolution such as ours. Those plans to aid the Earth have to do with what is now happening through some contact groups or isolated people that are being seen by these beings and are contacted, taken to their cities, and sometimes their world, so that we, as human beings, and since we are born, we learn to imitate. It is anticipated when we come in contact and communication with them, we could witness something really important and perhaps imitate the harmony and joy. There are civilizations that have overcome illness. There are civilizations that have overcome war. There are civilizations that have overcome the best of their aspirations, accomplishing a world in harmony, balance, peace, and love. So what this cosmic plan tries to do is to show us that there are civilizations that have accomplished overwhelming problems that we, as humanity and as society, are living today. We can do it too. This is, in its essence, how this cosmic plan has come to be designed.
Louis, I'm sure that was wonderful. I'll be able to tell you folks about it when we get our translator, Laura Mitri, when we get the conference. Question number 2. In the light of the planetary crisis and the purging of negativity that is ongoing on our world, political and societal infrastructure, what is your feeling on the restrictions and fear-based media culture and the fake pandemic that's destroying businesses and personal lives? How can we deal with the situation, and what should our reaction be to inculcate more peace and harmony with our fellow man?
The guides have been very clear by telling us that these first 6 months of 2020 were going to be a big test in the change and transformation that our humanity is living. Now, the interesting part is that they are being very clear that as how the tests are and how the success comes. So they told me specifically that all the manufactured crisis problems that we are living through, what is called COVID-19, around the world will have had its highest peak by mid-year, which is June and July. Then the COVID crisis will be controlled and we will overcome it. However, what is coming after it is the most important part. Like the light at the end of the tunnel, what we are living is not only an isolated event. Just like the cosmic plan that began thousands of years ago, we are now living in transition and transformation as society, at the political, economic, and social levels, among all the infrastructures that our humanity is based. They talk about 7 years between 2018 and 2025. Some of what I will present to you in a little bit has to do with what the guides and masters call a countdown, which can be constituted as prophecies given by this great white brotherhood and the extraterrestrial guides for this time. What we are observing could look like a pandemic situation orchestrated by the multinationals to have more control over our society. It is also coming to an end. We should not be in fear or frightened. We know that the bigger the test, the higher the success. And on that note, we are creating a generalized note where we have to take control of our destiny. Therefore, we have started to see the unbalanced moves towards the chaotic events. These are the products of the different movements that are being generated by the United States, Europe, South America, and all the countries of the world. The realization that these great transnationals and these hidden groups, which have been arbitrarily orchestrating the keeping of our consciousness as slaves, so to speak, to the majority of our human collective, is now falling apart. The guides have told us that the best way to overcome this fear and control matrix is with our own consciousness awakening. How can we do it? Through all the techniques and development of contact, first and foremost of us, within ourselves. And then that consciousness awakening will allow us precisely to remove the veil from our eyes, open our mind to these new realities, and see deeply what has been manifesting in the physical plane and the spiritual plane in its true dimension. In other words, let's concentrate our energy not in the negative aspects of the pandemic and what it has created. Let's focus instead on the light, through the light, and with the light, being present, constantly present, because that will be our greatest, best protection and strength.
I'm going to read you one more question, and then you're going to begin the PowerPoint. What are the timelines in the projected future for humanity as we move forward? When will things get better? And can you give us some hope and positive news, as many people are frozen with fear? And we'd like your perspective on this, and I'm going to let you answer. And thank you.
Bueno,
The guides and masters that contacted me have anticipated the 7 years they call the countdown. We will have many events that are defined and definitive in the process that humanity is experiencing now. In 2025, we expect to come out of this peak we have reached as transformation events unfold. It is from the eye of the storm that we can move together in a way that is coordinated and conscious. We must set the new course in alignment for the birth of a new humanity and consequently the establishment of a new era. All of this is possible. The guides, the Venetians, many other worlds have accomplished it. Why not us? This is the hope and alternative message that they give us with their presence here at this time. We are the architects of our own destiny, and as creators of our own destiny, we can co-create a world to fulfill our highest ideals. This is the goal, that we become participants and protagonists in this transformational change wherever we are.
Thank you, Louis. This is fantastic. Would you like to begin your PowerPoint?
We are now demonstrating information that has to do with what we are talking about. We are going to go into depth of how this 7-year countdown and how these prophecies given by the ancient masters of the Great White Brotherhood that have been given for this time have been creating the frame of transformation for our humanity and planet. If you look at the screen, just like I mentioned on the first question you asked, this cosmic plan of which we are a part was revealed to me personally over 40 years ago. In 1977, these beings were telling me that the Earth was going to begin to be influenced by energy surges coming from the center of the galaxy. These surges coming from the center of the galaxy were going to be detached by the central sun from the Milky Way, known as the Mansi sun. These bubbles that you're looking at, in reality, are concentrations of X-ray and gamma ray emissions produced, probably plasma or a type of gas from the center of the galaxy. All of these movements and concentration of energy are projecting ultraviolet energy, and that ultraviolet energy is now arriving in our solar system, as I was told more than 40 years ago. In our solar system, the sun starts catalyzing this energy. It receives it, and what does it receive from the central sun and the galaxy through these ultraviolet energy surges? Programs. Live programs that have to do with the beginning of the new cosmic guide. Then the sun receives them and projects them. Where does it project them? It projects them specifically to the worlds that circle in this wonderful system. In that sense, when this energy arrives to Earth, to the atmosphere, it affects directly to what the constant wave of our planet's vibration, known as Schumann resonance. This is interesting because all these energies that the sun receives and projects and catalyzes comes to our planet as programs, new life programs. And these new life programs have made the modifications in the past years. My dear friend Rob, this is the cosmic wave or Schumann frequency. For those who haven't heard about the Schumann frequency, let me remind you that in the decade of the 50s, when they were developing the first space flights, the first astronauts, and maybe not so many people knew about this, but every time they went outside to the atmosphere and came back, they came back with a lot of emotional and physical problems. Schumann discovered that human beings, or Earth, has a constant vibration of 7.8 hertz. And that when the human being is not in contact with the Earth's frequency, tends to displace and alter its physical, emotional, and spiritual state. Because of this problem, they developed a special machine that reproduces the frequency for the craft that helps them overcome this instability problem for the astronauts. What is most interesting about all this, my dear friends, is that this Schumann frequency, while it started in 1950, to date, it has been modified and transformed. It is no longer 7.8 hertz, but it is 12, 13, and much more. How have we been able to see this transformation of the constant Earth vibration? Through an activation of the neural network of the Earth. The planet, just like us, is a living being, and it has a neural network, chakras, central energy vortices, that these natural energy vortices, which the guides and masters call them exons. And let us not forget that the exons are components of our own blood and also for the planet, in charge of transferring and storing information. These vortexes are found within our DNA, and at that same time, it is manifested in the spiritual body of the planet, and these planetary exons make out a whole neurological network. Today's reality is a product of the entrance of this cosmic energy into the solar system, and far from the solar system is projected through the solar winds to the Earth via the rings of fire. More specifically, it has activated what is called the igneous mass of Earth. In the igneous mass of Earth, there is an incandescent sun, and that incandescent sun has the shape of a spear. The sphere is known by the masters as internal temple of the planet and is called by them as the dodecahedron. This dodecahedron, which is the spiritual center, the internal temple, the heart of our Mother Earth, is the one that sends the signal of vibration change that are received from the center of the galaxy and are projected by the sun. So the Earth, especially in this shift, in this activation of all of its planetarium neural network, begins to redimension by itself in a frequency in an 8 superior state of consciousness and manifestation in its physical plane, etherical plane, and spiritual plane. How is this redimensioning of our planet manifested in this new vibration frequency? It is happening through the element that it makes. We find here that in the last few years, the volcanic activity and the reception of these cosmic rays on Earth has increased. Why is this important? Because volcanoes are something like our radial nerve endings, which connect directly with our neurological matrix. This is how these planetary neural networks function. Just like our fingers reconnect to the network of our nerve system matrix, the volcano network connects with what's called the igneous mass of the Earth, or the sacred temple of our mother nature known as dodecahedron. The volcanoes act as a terminal. The sum total of this network of volcanoes is known as the Ring of Fire. This is consisting of approximately 570 volcanoes, active and inactive. However, the redimensional transformation that our planet is going through is not just being manifested through the network of volcanoes, but also the winds. All of these hurricane storms or megastorms that have been increasing during the past years are example of the transformation. We have to take into account something really important, and that is that these changes are not bad. They are a part of the process. It is bad for us because it affects us in our ways and lifestyle. However, what is really happening is that the Earth is redimensioning itself in this new vibration frequency, and it does it through the elements that it makes, which are nature's elements. This is why we are seeing the most of the storms and volcano activities and bigger seismic movements. It is because Earth itself, in this shifting, is crystallifying itself. Here is when we start talking about what Robert was asking me a few minutes ago in this such important year, which is 2020, and what is happening on Earth with our world. You'll remember that May 4th had a very important event, or April 9th actually. And that is the fact that in the early morning of April 9th, the NASA satellite stereo registered an alteration in the electromagnetic field of the planet, a tremendous distortion as you can observe on the screen. This distortion made on that same day activated 15 volcanoes simultaneously, which is something that had never happened before. Among them, the son of Krakatoa, and this is how we witnessed in April the change and modification in the geometric field of the Earth. This change simultaneously activated these 15 volcanoes, and this shows us that the Earth has arrived at the epicenter of transformational change in which it is crystallizing. You probably would remember that in the past months, the internet has been flooded and the social networks with the rivers that used to be polluted, and now they have crystalline waters. The atmosphere has cleared thanks to the stopping of almost 3/4 of humanity's pollution. Earth, somehow in that metamorphosis or new birth, in the physical, etherical, spiritual plane, has begun to crystallize itself. What is also very interesting is on this very special date, the stereo satellite was able to register how the moment that this proximity to Earth happened in April, and that there is this great solar flare. A mega ship that sends a cone of light to Earth in a way of protection when this movement happens, the magnetic transformation, and the activation of more than 15 volcanoes. This shows, my friends, that we are not alone. In this transformational process of Earth and this continuous awakening of humanity, we are not alone. We are being accompanied by these civilizations in the great cosmic plan created and designed for our consciousness awakening many thousands of years ago, and it is now in truth finally being accomplished day to day. This is why the masters and guides are helping us since thousands of years ago, have given us clues and signs. They are very concrete for the development of different activities and missions in this transformational change that we are living. Let me invite you to watch this presentation where the guides, since 2017, when I was in Novara, Italy. I was with Anna, my wife, who was working with this anticipated consciousness awakening. Many other contactees anticipated that in 2018. I received this in 2017 in the north of Italy. Then, this Venetian guide known as Amani, here we have her. This is the one 3D representation of how she is. Amani is a Venetian teacher, and she gives me this message where she tells me that in 2018, first of all, these confederate worlds that visit us will begin a process of global content. Do you think it is a casualty that the Pentagon and different countries at the global level are beginning to free their secret archives about the phenomenon of presence of aerial anomalies in different parts of the world? This comes perfectly to coincide with the fact that the Confederation vessels are each time more present in the places where these changes are taking place. The Venetian teacher goes on to say, "We will be with you along this humanity transformation. For what we know is an advance of what is already known in the collective of Earth's consciousness, that you are not alone and that there are a group of civilizations that are with you now, just like in the past in your awakening." She goes on saying, 7 years from 2018 to 2025, in a countdown of continuous assistance that will be set in the recognition of your true cosmic ascension. Our Earth, our humanity, truly has stellar genetics. This is why these stellar beings that are not new here, but have been thousands of years ago, are among us and with us, so we can remember the origins, the stellar essence of which we truthfully come from. At the same time, they keep saying, light, due to its intensity, will polarize many in the imbalance, taking them to a frenzy of conflagration and confrontation, which will end up sealing the past of pain and suffering. Nothing will be like before. This is very interesting because in this communication, the extraterrestrial guides anticipate to me that in the month of September 9th, 2018, there will be a cosmic consciousness and solar ones coming into our planet. Like in the past, they would observe closely this process of transition of our Earth and humanity during these 7 years from 2018 to 2025 to its new conscious state. We organized a program contact for September 9th, 2018, where Robert was a witness, and in one of those most magical places nowadays in our planet known as the Finger of God, the tallest volcano in the world, which is found in Bolivia, and that would be the epicenter of power where the Great White Brother Sisterhood is manifesting. In that time, those who were present, such as our dear investigator and contactee, Robert Potter, were present on September 9th, 2018. What happened those days? Let me show you so you can remember it.
Okay. Aquí estamos.
Yes, Louis, I remember it. It was great.
Observatorio Solar de Nuevo México, cerrado por el FBI.
Uh-huh.
Por esto,
From September 6th to the 11th, they were able to register massive ships coming out of the sun as if the sun was a great portal. This is why many observatories were simply closed. There are many explanations given about this. The most important part is that, extra-officially, these amateur astronomers were able to register the entrance of these massive ships during the days that we had been announced. Voice explains ships appearing from coming out of the sun. In both videos, you can see the bigger ships and then smaller objects. They are not objects that reflect from the camera, but UFOs. Could this be the reason of the closure of the 7 observatories in the United States?
Nos habían
Grandes
anunciado
ovnis en forma de disco, así como una gran flota de ovnis más pequeños que acompañan a los ovnis masivos en forma de disco. Gina escribió en su Facebook el 11 de septiembre de 2018 a las 8:02 am, Salem, Indiana. Esto es lo que apareció en mi cámara después de tomar una foto del sol en el este del cielo esta mañana. Además, en los 2 vídeos, Gina habla sobre los discos masivos de ovni y la flota de ovnis más pequeños. Los objetos en las imágenes no son bengalas de lente u objetos que se reflejan en la lente de la cámara, sino naves nodrizas masivas y una flota de ovnis más pequeños. ¿Podría ser esta la razón para el cierre repentino de 7 observatorios solares en los Estados Unidos?
Tal como nos lo habían anticipado, no solo que aparecieron en esos días las naves masivas desde el Sol, sino que se cerraron los observatorios y nosotros a plena luz del día pudimos ser testigos presenciales de cómo infinidad de naves se hacían presentes en la altiplanicie boliviana.
Just like they anticipated to us, not only have they appeared during those days, but the observatories were closed, and we were able to witness this in plain sunlight, how the ships were being present. In this gathering where Robert Potter was present on September 9th, 2018, we were also presential witnesses of the manifestation of the guides and masters that were more than ever close to us, giving us the start of what they call the countdown from 2018 to 2025. We had sights that allowed us to see how close these Confederate worlds are from all of us. These that you observed were finally presented as a chronicle of the contact in England months later by someone else like Robert Potter. The investigator, Sergio Gusberg, created a chronicle of the contact, which you can observe here. Practically it says, "From my personal experience after finding Luis Fernando, I have no doubt that this man is 100% sincere and has had contact with extraterrestrials and members of our spiritual hierarchy, and he is telling the truth." This is important because the contact as such, just like they had anticipated before, at the skirts of the highest volcano in the world, called Sama. And it gave the starting to a series of fulfilling prophecies, untold events in our 7-year countdown from 2018 to 2025, which is what we are witnessing now. This has to do with the pandemic and the release of information of extraterrestrials present in our world. This is how 2018 and the beginning of 2019, the masters communicated with me again, telling me that 2019, in this 7-year countdown of 2018 to 2025, is demonstrated by them as the year of contact. What does this mean? In 2019, an ETO was formed. It is an ETO for the Galactic Confederation for Close Encounters of Our Humanity. It is not a coincidence that from 2019 to this quarantine, with this UFO wave at world level, the manifestations of endless number of UFOs, and the registration of filming, even from space station to our atmosphere, and the registration of massive amounts of ships to Earth. This has been previously anticipated by the masters and guides and extraterrestrial beings as part of a plan of proximity and freedom of information to our humanity that we are not alone. When I got this information at the beginning of 2018, they sent me information about this man called Chico Xavier, who is a prophet, a psychic of Brazil. 50 years ago, he had anticipated that the guides and the beings that had contacted him manifested to him that if humanity didn't auto-destroy itself in those 50 years, then the world's confederation where they came from would open the doors of their center so that we could incorporate ourselves consciously to this cosmic plan. These civilizations that helped us in a conscious and coordinated way, this is exactly what is happening. I invite you to watch this video.
Un encuentro que es inevitable. Cuando digo enfrentar, no me refiero a una actitud belicosa, sino simplemente a que va a tener que hacerse cargo de un choque cultural. O sea, digámoslo, esto no es como que venga un sueco a vivir a tu casa. Estamos hablando de seres de otro planeta, en donde probablemente uno más o menos le queda más que agachar el moño, y más escuchar que hablar. Absolutamente. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que pasa? Este hombre que estamos viendo en pantalla, que generó una infinitud de psicografías, vale decir, escribir, canalizando personajes famosos, literatos, artistas fallecidos, que escribió, pero centenares de libros, además de que también generó psicofonías. Él también hizo curaciones milagrosas, clarividencia y también materialización de objetos. A ese punto llegó este hombre. La verdad es que él, en el año 1986, dentro de sus infinitas profecías, todas cumplidas y todas que hasta el día de hoy no dejan de sorprender, se manda una que es muy particular, porque es demasiado precisa con día, fecha, mes y año. A ver. Tiene que ver con la llegada, o por lo menos con el primer manifiesto, que nadie después de eso podría decir, los extraterrestres no existen, o lo que sea que sean, y que de ahí en adelante hay un contacto que se va haciendo cada vez más naturalizado. En palabras, en el escrito de Chico Xavier, lo que él dijo es lo siguiente: nosotros vamos a avisar 15 días antes que lleguemos a esta fecha, a ver si es que pasa realmente, sería la única vez que se hubiese equivocado este gran vidente. Él dijo así: nuestro Señor concedió un plazo de 50 años, a comenzar el 20 de julio de 1969. Aquí no hay subtítulos, es fecha.
No hay aproximado.
Exacto. Y terminando en julio del 2019, por si es que uno no hiciera bien la matemática, te lo entrega.
Ahora.
Con la finalidad de colaborar para que entremos en la comunidad planetaria como mundo más regenerado.
A mí me suena esto bien coherente con lo que ha dicho Ayuna acá, de que a lo mejor en esa fecha se cierra cierto tipo de ciclo, que capaz que sea esta famosa cuarentena cósmica.
Acuérdate que está el eclipse.
Bien, y los eclipses tienen mucho que ver con los extraterrestres, una forma de comunicación también, y señales también que dan a través de la figura que forman los eclipses.
La energía.
Y ahí comienza, yo creo.
This is interesting because they are announcing that something that happened in 1969 and anticipated that in 2019, 50 years later, it would mark the ETO in the proximity of the civilizations that visit us and that will define our humanity in the knowing of our existence, which is undeniable of the civilization that are helping us. You would remember that there are several videos that have been registered with massive ships that are coming into the atmosphere and that inescapably we can observe have gone viral on social media. They show us that in 2019 and 2020, and during this quarantine and confinement, we are being helped by an infinity of ships that have arrived to Earth as a product of this transformational change that we are living. Dear friends, 2019 was prefixed 50 years ago to be the year of the beginning of the massive oncoming that would push for the release of information from the different world leaders that have it as a secret, and the way it is happening now. How it is now being placing the Pentagon so that all the information be released, all the information stored about the presence of extraterrestrials on our planet. Why is this important? Something very special happens in 2019 as well. You'll remember that in April of 2019, we were able to register for the very first time what is considered nowadays a historical photograph of our humanity. This was possible due to the synchronicity of 8 telescopes, so that they could register for the first time what is now known as the black hole. How is this relevant and the transcendence to have been able to register the physical presence of this black hole? The relevance is as follows. The scientists don't know what happened to all the stars. This black hole, every 48 hours, it eats a star. Where do they go? What happens? No one can give a real explanation, but the truth is that these black holes are the limit and the most external physical part of our universe, as the extraterrestrial beings that help me. When we, just like 500 years ago, Colon integrates America to the official history of the civilized world, the same way to make a linear history of what has happened after his arrival. However, we know the Vikings got here first, but officially it was taken historically as the arrival of Columbus to America. The same as 500 years ago, America was discovered. Let's just call it that. The American conquest. The same way, 500 years later, we are able to open our borders in the 4 latitudes of the atmosphere that surround us to the cosmos, and we begin to take consciousness about a new reality, and we stop from being the Homo sapiens to the Homo galactic. That being that is waking up to its true essence and nature, divine and stellar. When we register the furthest most confinement of our septennial physical universe, which is the one we share with these civilizations that help us. The same way we begin to start contact with communication with this new spiritual, eternal reality that goes beyond the black holes, and that masters and extraterrestrials guides know it and name it as the eternal universe. They tell us beyond the eternal universe, they claim that there is an essential universe. The most interesting thing about this is that this internal universe connects with the base of an energy, which is the co-creator, the fundamental essence of everything that is created in this material universe, which is the Christ energy, which is the energy of love. In this way, in this time of change and transformations that we are living, in this time of maelstorms in which changes and transformations are happening at an accelerated pace, if we are not attentive to everything that has been happening, we are simply letting the wisdom that these times bring to us to be lost as the water slipping through our fingers very quickly. In this context, this Christy energy begins to be operative and active as in the past. With the arrival of this solar consciousness, in the 7-year countdown with humanity in this special time. It is very interesting that the guides, being in Italy last year, precisely in the Alps, in Monte Rosa, the guides and masters communicated to me again and telling me that in 2020, with the 7-year countdown, they said the year 2020 will be the year of a great communion, which will allow a great light to be liberated over humanity, stabilizing erratic energies and magnetic fields of peace and harmony. Here comes the interesting part. At the same time, they anticipated mid last year, the masters had anticipated that this time that we are living. In 2020, you'll see how with the magnetic change of the earth, there will be alterations in nature's order and the sky never seen before, coming to a peak of closing and extreme expansion. Everything will come as the anterim of a new order and new light, which will settle the foundation of this now new time. This is very interesting because it prepared us last year for this year that we would see things never seen before. and that all these has to do with the alterations of the magnetic field of the Earth and the nature's own order, which will help generate events as we are seeing now. Events never seen before, arriving to a peak of closure and extreme expansion. When the Masters told us in this received communication, over a year ago in June last year, this was, for them, considered as the year of communion. Then finally, thanks to the manufactured energy, this year, 2020, 3/4 of humanity are confined to their own homes. I now understand that what the Masters and extraterrestrial guides were talking about. In this moment, we have been confined that each one of us starts to live in our own eternal fires within our own hearts and its own consciousness. That catharsis and real unions with themselves and loved ones, with their siblings, parents, children, husbands, and wives. Then, in this time of confinement, we are really living with a great opportunity within this planetary catharsis. If after this manufactured crisis that we are living, forgetting this was orchestrated or not by the dark interest. The fact is that it has happened. It is happening, we are living it, and after this process that we are living, we come out the same, then we need more time to reflect. We have been confined so that the same way our planet is living it, this crystallization, this Christification, we could live this catharsis, this communion, in our most intimate core. Just like the guides and masters had anticipated this communication, that we see events never seen before, have begun to show in different parts of the world, videos showing situations as natural phenomenon. I leave you with this video that was registered in Birmingham just a month ago. This is not the sun nor a reflection of the glass. You can observe the lock of the window. This is an energy bell. Look at how the object comes out of there. Here in the quarantine we are living, we are able to register the presence, equally the presence of the Confederate ships that exist, coming specifically from Venus. This type of ship, which is a great cylinder with two big spheres, we've been able to observe at close proximity, whether during the day or at night. In fact, in more than one occasion, I've been able to see the ship come down and I've been in contact with them directly. At this time, I recognize that the origin of this object is of Venetian origin. We had this years ago, in midday, and Robert Potter was with us as well on this trip of solar activation that we had at the Andres Mountains and Titicaca Lake, to which we are inviting you to participate by August next year, 2021, to be able to live together and experience of those close encounters with extraterrestrial guides that are assisting us, the ancient masters of the Great White Brotherhood and Sisterhood. We can observe the ship with two spheres rotating on its own axis in plain daylight.
Wow. Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God.
Y bueno, he tenido la experiencia de estar este fin de semana aquí en el Torcal con Luis Fernando y Ana. Y bueno, ayer teníamos un encuentro programado a las 11 de la noche y bueno, estuvimos conectándonos, aunque llevábamos ya todo el día y bueno, a la hora que le dijeron a Luis Fernando, pues apareció una nave y hubo un fogonazo y bueno, y luego nos activaron además a todos los cristales en las manos. Yo lo pude sentir en las manos físicamente y bueno, sentí un amor enorme por la confirmación de la hora y bueno, por las sensaciones de
These are testimonials that I'm sharing of experiences like the ones we had last year with Robert Potter and Sergio Gusberg on September 2018. Because furthermore, what I can state that I am a contactee by the masters and extraterrestrial guides, in particular the Venetian guides. The testimonial of third parties, like in the case of Anna, like you saw in the video, where she gave faith and testimony that I received a communication where they mention a specific place and time, and at that time and in that place, the ship appeared supporting the group of contact. This is important not because I say it is, but they are the ones that constitute the presental witnesses that the experience was anticipated and it became true. The ones that make the essence and give it personality to the experience of the program contactee. Defining in particular 2019 as a year of contact, where I had in America, United States, South America, and Europe program contacts in more than 5 opportunities. With these life experience testimonials, in the last group of Malaga, and the different viewing filmed by this year during the quarantine, gave statement, and the experience is real. This is happening now. The contact is happening. Look here. These triangular ships which we saw in another opportunity with Robert Potter at the Andres Mountain here in Bolivia 2 or 3 years ago. There was a presence. Look here in Siberia and Russia, April 6, 2020. That same ship on the same month of April 1st at 9:30 p.m., we see it furrow in the space above our home here in La Paz. With the same characteristics in formation, forming a long triangle with one of these spheres as we can observe in this video, signaling the direction of this object. To reaffirm this experience is happening and contact is really happening as the last viewing on July 1st, 2020. Being in contact with the masters the minute this object aligns vertically with me, simply in a way of greeting. This ship starts its fuelage in a spectacular way, greeting and making us feeling its warmth and energy and the proximity with which the masters and guides are with everyone and each one of us. All of this, why and for what? Because we're living in a time of changes and transformations that get us closer like never before to what are the steps of our beloved Master, Jesus the Christ. When Robert starts this dialogue, this presentation, this conference and interview, and makes allusion to the introduction of my most recent book, The Seal of the Dragon, words that I'm very grateful for, Robert, to the mentioning you make to all the trajectory we've been sharing with the masters and extraterrestrial guides from the Great White Brotherhood. All of these angelical groups, this great solar consciousness, that are now an implicant part of our day-to-day, our awakening. When you introduce this book, which happily is now translated to English, so that we can all internalize on what is happening with the Great White Brotherhood, with this Christic cosmic energies that are now active and operating on Earth. When you introduce precisely to this wonderful experience, which is the Seal of the Dragon, to give you all a summary who are watching and listening, this is a trip, a way to conscious awakening that gets us closer to our most intimate form, which is found and resides in the deepest part of our hearts and consciousness. It is that internal crust, that internal master that has to do with the Sword of Michael, which is found specifically in the context of the planetary neurologic network that is now more than active in Europe. I was guided by the hand of the Great White Brotherhood and taken to go through and observe all of these places, initially from England in 2011, then to Italy, France, and Greece, to conclude in the 3 years of ministry that had our beloved Master, Jesus, in the Holy Land. All of this to be aware that the limit of those 8 telescopes photographed about the black hole, the most distant confinement of our physical material reality in this universe septennial, which has to do with the presence. It manifests this wonderful Christ force energy, the energy of love. It has brought us closer to that solar consciousness that is now active and operative on Earth, and that have to do with the awakening of our consciousness and that communion that has to happen within each one of us, but within ourselves. This being said, I invite you truly that we all together reflect in a real communion with our own hearts, where all the answers are and where all the truths are manifested. It is not far nor distant from each one of us. It is inside of us, with us, and within ourselves. The infinite love, the wonderful Christ energy of which our extraterrestrial guides, the masters from Venus, are all carriers of this love. The Venusian guides are firm that in this year, in this time, we are starting a new voyage of awakening of consciousness, in the biggest sense of the expression. Please receive a strong and warm hug from the Andes Mountains and the Titicaca Lake, your friend and true brother. We are in contact. Thank you, Robert.
Te cedo la palabra.
Luis, Oh my God, fantastic. This is spectacular news and wonderful information. Ladies and gentlemen who have been listening to this at the conference, I want you to realize Louis and I are going to be doing some tours in Bolivia and Peru next year. I'll be able to announce the dates at the conference after this video. And I'm hoping that you'll recognize the evidence that's presented here is of a spiritual nature. Louis' new book, through an anonymous donor, we have been able to pay for the translation that was done by Raymond Keller. However, for those of you who are interested, we are hoping to seek financing to actually publish this book. So for those of you who are interested who wanted to support this mission. Also, at this time, I'm going to announce to everyone that Luis is developing a property on the shores of Lake Titicaca. It is to become an external retreat of the Great White Brotherhood. And he's building a beautiful series of structures where we have our congregations there. The masters and guides have also asked for me to create a center in Mt Shasta. And the center is going to be supported by the work of Dr. Raymond Andrew Keller, Omnek, and Luis Fernando Maertens will be on the board of directors. And the idea is to create a center, a repository of information, and a place for people to gather to receive initiation. And we'd call it the Solar Initiation Temple, and we would determine the name of the property at some point. But we're seeking funding for those people who are possibly able to finance an entire new little city of light, so to speak, a repository. So Louis is going to be involved in that. And I'd like to thank you all. And thank you, Louis. Let's give him a big hand here now for your talk. Thank you, Louis. Vaya con Dios y mucho amor.